Christmas.
BBC Radio Stoke.
Now let's change subject for a second. What's going on with the Church of England? Been a turbulent last few months, which has seen the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, step down over a damning report into the church covering up prolific abuse. Now, Stephen Cottrell, the Archbishop of York, who's lined up to temporarily take over from Justin Welby, is facing calls himself to resign over handling of a sexual abuse case. He says he's deeply sorry for not acting quicker. Gavin Drake is a journalistic campaigner who used to work for the Church of England in the Lichfield Diocese, and he's been writing about this, and I thought I'd quite like to talk to him, so we will. Morning, Gavin.
Good morning, Stuart.
What's going on here? Just bring us up to speed with where the Church of England finds itself.
A lot of the coverage has focused on the Makin review, which was a long-awaited, much-delayed independent review into the handling of complaints about John Smythe, the barrister. And that case has featured heavily on Channel 4 News. Kathy Newman, their reporter, has done a lot of research on this, going back a number of years, and first exposed it into the public eye. BBC Panorama, likewise, have done significant work on this. And that led to the resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury when it was found in the review that he had failed to take sufficient action when he became aware of the allegations about Smythe. But what we're dealing with is not just the Makin review. The Makin review is the latest in a long line of independent reviews into safeguarding scandals in the church. And what's happened at the moment is that the dam that's holding back the publicity, the awareness of what's going on in the church is cracking to the extent that the bishops and the hierarchy, the secretariat at Church House in London, can no longer keep patching up the holes. What normally happens is when an allegation comes about the fact that church officials, normally bishops, have failed to take action properly, the Archbishop's Council will commission an independent review, and this takes 2 or 3 years. The Smythe review took close to 6 years, and then the review comes out, and one of the things that they're able to say is, we're learning the lessons, this is past behaviour. And the reason it's past behaviour is because they let the reviews take so long to come out that they could say this is in the past. But what's happening is that this is in the present, and that dam is now breaking, and they can't patch up the holes well enough. And so more and more victims and survivors are coming forward and openly telling their stories, and people are putting the pieces together of the puzzle and putting out that when an archbishop says that this can't happen again, they're able to go back 5 years and say, well, you said the same thing 5 years ago, you said the same thing 3 years ago, you said the same thing 10 years ago, but it keeps happening. And also you say that you're learning the lessons, but it's the same pattern of behavior. Not by, the abusers are the abusers, and that's one thing, but no organisation can stop abusers. It's how you deal with the abusers. But if the pattern of behaviour is in the hierarchy and how they deal with the cases, that's the problem.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that, because you've worked at various levels within the Church of England and know its structures and its systems pretty much as well as anyone, I would argue. Are the safeguards there? Is it that the rules are there and the way that the bishops should operate is written down somewhere and the rules are there and they're not adhering to the rules? Or is it actually that the rules are a bit sketchy?
There's a bit of both. The rules are sketchy, but the rules as they stand are clear, and if they are followed, then there wouldn't be a problem. Well, there would be a problem, but what happens is when a complaint is made that first of all, let's go back to basics, because the structure of the Church of England is complicated. And at the very basic level, you have parish churches and parish clergy, the vast majority of whom are serving their communities well. Not just the clergy, but the lay people alongside them, the church wardens, the parish church, parochial church councils, the congregation. They're going along to church, they're worshipping God, they're serving their communities, and they're doing things well. That's in the vast majority of the Church of England, that's what it is, and that's not where the problem is. Abusers and people who want to abuse will attach themselves to churches in the way they will attach themselves to hospitals, to schools, to scouts groups, anywhere where they can get access to the people that they want to abuse. And that's why churches and other bodies need to be aware, open, and not skeptical of everybody that comes to help, but have procedures in place to try and spot abuse and know what to do when that happens. And what happens at the moment is when abuse comes to light or an allegation is made, it goes to the diocese, and every parish has a parish safeguarding officer, and that's part of the oversight, making sure everything's ticking over. When an allegation is made, the parish safeguarding officer is taken out of the picture, and it's handled by the diocese and it's handled by the bishop. And in many cases that I'm aware of, they handle things badly. And again, I'm not saying it's all bishops. I was a member of the General Synod for a couple of years, and I made the joke that I'm got nothing against bishops. Well, not all of them, but it's the same bishops, same handful of bishops, time and time again that are making mistakes. And when you complain about the bishop, that goes to the Archbishop. Archbishop of York in the northern province, the Archbishop of Canterbury in the southern province, and there's a process that has to be followed. Not a single complaint about a bishop has ever been for failing safeguarding has ever been upheld by the archbishops. It's never been sent on to the next stage, which is an investigation and a potential tribunal. Because it's reputation management. If they bring complaints about bishops out into the public to a tribunal, then it's damaging to the church, it's damaging to the mission. And I've seen some clergy and bishops argue that the current publicity surrounding the church isn't helpful at a time of Christmas, when the churches are reaching out to try and get people to come to church for Christmas. It's a time when congregations generally increase. A lot of people do go to Christmas that don't go regularly throughout the year. But I say it's not unhelpful. It is very helpful, because that dam needs to burst. That wall of secrecy that's enabled this continuing re-abuse of victims and survivors to continue needs to be breached so that the stories are heard.
And so this is clearly damaging. It's reputational damage now for the Church of England, from what you've said there, and from all the publicity that it's getting. And it's interesting that you raised that it's particularly pertinent at this time of year. What does the Church need to do then? How can it get out of this in a way where the reputation is not damaged irreparably, but also, and in fact, the reputation is enhanced? The reputation of the Church of England as a safe place for people to be, and I'm not suggesting, as you haven't, Gavin, most of it is absolutely safe, but there's one or two, and that will come to light, as in any organisation, who aren't behaving appropriately. What does the Church need to do?
Can I answer that in a roundabout way by first of all saying what it shouldn't do? What it shouldn't do is say that Justin Welby has resigned as Archbishop of Canterbury, therefore the headers roll and the book stopped at the top, and therefore everything's safe. Because it isn't. The Archbishop of York, I personally think, is far more culpable in his safeguarding failings than Justin Welby. He needs to go, as does the person who's in charge of the Secretariat in London, a civil servant, retired civil servant, well, former civil servant, he's not retired, who became on to be Secretary General of the Archbishop's Council. Because in terms of the administration and the senior staff at it's not the headquarters, because each diocese is individual, each parish is individual, but the national church institutions he heads up, a chap called William Nye, he also needs to go as well, because they have been the bottleneck of reform. And then what needs to happen is that proper root and branch reform needs to happen, including independent management of safeguarding allegations. So the Church of England should not relinquish its responsibility for safeguarding in terms of training, safe recruitment, the monitoring that takes place, the DBS checks for volunteers and so on, parish safeguarding officers. That needs to happen within the church. But the moment an allegation comes up that says person X, whether they're a priest, a bishop, a lay person, that person X has committed wrong, then that needs to be taken out of the church's hands. The church is not capable of doing this properly, and put into an independent body. And that body needs to run the investigation and the processes, and there needs to be another body responsible for the oversight of that body, which again is not the church. The Church of England had an independent safeguarding board, that they set up, and myself and various others questioned this and said, you haven't passed a measure, which is a law, the church law, that gives this body any power. They can't do anything. And what they said, that they had moral authority, they could speak. The problem was the Independent Safeguarding Board did speak, and it did criticise the church, and it did criticise the Archbishop's Council, so the Archbishop's Council sacked them. That's how independent it was. The Archbishop's Council could control it. And they promised us that they would get Professor Alexis Jay, who led the ICSA inquiry, to commission proposals for fully independent oversight. And she delivered her report, but the Church of England, instead of fulfilling it, as they said they would, they've set up working groups that have watered down the proposals, and that will come to the General Synod in February, the watered down proposals. But I think I'm picking up now from many Synod members a reluctance to just hear from the top that everything's fine. When an Archbishop of Canterbury steps down, it's quite clear that everything isn't fine.
Okay, well, we must leave it there only for time reasons. Gavin Drake, thank you very much for coming on. Clearly work to be done. The Archbishop of York would, I'm sure, disagree with some of the points made there, and has in a statement, we did reach out to the Church of England for some points on this. The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, said, the situation I faced when I became Bishop of Chelmsford was horrible and intolerable, most of all for survivors and victims who bravely come forward and shared their stories from the 80s, but news coverage that implied no action was taken until this year is not true. In my capacity as Bishop of Chelmsford, I suspended David Tudor from office at the first opportunity when a new victim came forward to the police in 2019. Up until then, there were no legal grounds to take alternative action. It's something that will roll on over into the new year, I'm sure, and it's something we'll keep an eye on BBC Radio Stoke.